In this video tutorial, you'll learn how to purchase a domain name and then point it to another hosting service provider. We'll be using qservers.net to practicalize this and then point the domain name to Namecheap hosting provider. This comes handy when you already purchased an hosting provider from one particular service provider. It could be Hostinger, it could be Namecheap, and then you got a better offer to buy a domain name from a different hosting provider. In this case, we're buying from qservers and we'll be pointing it to Namecheap. At the end of the video, I will also give you extra tips on how to point to other hosting providers like Hostinger and some of the differences you might encounter when using some of them. So let's begin. I would go to qservers.net. For this purpose, I am buying domain name for a client. The domain would be apcarglobal.com.ng. It's because it's a .ng domain which is native to Nigeria. That's why I'm using qservers.net. You could use Namecheap, you could use Hostinger and many other providers. Any provider could work out here. apcarglobal.com.ng. It works the same way every single hosting provider. You would always see the domain search option. Click input your domain name, then press search. This is once again we'll be buying the domain name from qservers and pointing it to Namecheap. Okay, it's finished loading. apcarglobal.com.ng is available. How long do you want to register? 1 year, 2 years? I'm just registering for 1 year and it's 1,100. So for qservers, you have lots of options. You could choose an alias for the domain name, maybe apcarglobal.lg.gov.ng, but let's leave that. We want .com.ng. Scroll down, click continue. So name servers, would come back to play with name servers when trying to point our domain name from qservers to Namecheap. But for now, let's leave this name server as the default name server here. You go to continue. Yeah, it's asking me, okay, new customer, existing customer. Yeah, I'm an existing customer. Let me input my email and password. So I'm done imputing my email and password. We go down. If we have a promo code, you can go for that. If we don't, we don't. Then now enter switch web pay stack. So just choose enter switch web pay to pay for the domain name. It's just a straightforward process. Most time you search for the availability of the domain, then click keep following the process, then check out. So when it comes to this page, you proceed to pay. Click pay via GTPay. It takes you to GT Gateway, and then you input your card and pay. So this is GT Gateway. Enter your email address. I87. Continue transaction. Choose payment type. So I would pay using my ATM card. I'll pause the video. After I've inputted the details and process the payment, I would continue. So after you input the card details, put in your PIN, proceed. Yeah, it sends an OTP. I just got the OTP on my phone. It's 67097. Proceed, and successful. So once you're done making payment for your domain name and it redirects you back to the Q servers dashboard, this is the home page for the dashboard. It shows you all services you have, and then you have domain name. I have 3 domain name purchased here. You click domains, and then you can see all the previous domain purchased. So the one we just got was appcarglobal.com.ng. In this situation, we want to point the domain to another hosting server, that's namecheap.com. So in order to do that, we would have to go to, you can see the icon pointing down. You choose manage name servers. So once you get to this page, the default name server is ns1.qservers.net. This means the name server is pointing towards Q server itself. To point it towards another hosting server, you have to choose use custom name servers, and then you impute it here. So for the name servers for different hosting provider differs. For Namecheap, you would always use this dns1.namecheaphosting.com. And then if you were to point it to Hostinger, you would always use ns1.dnspacking.com. If you were to point it to HostGator in the cPanel, this is what the cPanel looks like. This is Namecheap cPanel. In the cPanel, by the right hand side, you would see your name server, and then you could copy it. The goal is to copy the name server of your hosting provider and then paste it here where you have name servers. Most times you only have 2 name servers, and then you override the the default name server being put there. So after putting this, you click change name server. So I'm done changing the name server. You would notice that you can change where your domain points to here. Please be aware changes can take up to 24 hours to propagate. It takes an average of 1 to 3 hours most time. It's only in rare cases it takes up to 40 and 24 hours. So the next step after pointing your name server, we're done with the steps here at Q server. We have to go down to our other hosting provider. So I'm already logged into my cPanel. For Namecheap, cPanel is a control panel. It comes with your hosting provider most time, and then when you purchase an hosting, the way you manage that server is through your cPanel. I already logged into my cPanel. That's another video for another time to get to know how to get to your cPanel. In order to add appcarglobal.com.ng to this particular hosting provider, I would scroll down until I see domains, and this is an add-on domain. You have your main domain, your primary domain, then you have add-on domains, and you have subdomains, you have aliases. Your primary domain is the domain you bought with your hosting provider. So when you're purchasing an hosting service from any provider, you would often purchase it with a domain name, and that would serve as your primary domain. Then add-on domain is if your hosting provider gives you the option of hosting other domain or other website alongside your main website. They come in as add-on domain. So my main domain here is oneumagroup.com, and then my add-on domain would be appcarglobal.com.ng. Subdomain, you might have seen websites like foods.jumia.com, and those websites that have is something coming before the main website. You can see food coming before jumia.com, food.jumia.com. So food is the subdomain of jumia.com. This happens when you have different sections of your site, and then you want to give them different domain name and maybe make them different websites entirely. That's how subdomain works. Aliases, you might want to purchase different style of your domain name. You might want to have appcar.com, you could have appcar.ng, you could have appcar.com.ng. So you all put them as aliases to the main one, appcar.com. So in this case, we are adding add-on domain, and then I'm going to impute our domain name appcar.com.ng, right? And then next thing is to add domain. So it says, oops, looks like appcarglobal.com.ng pointed to remote name server. That means it's not yet propagated. Remember, they said it takes up to 24 hours, and I gave you maybe around 1 hour to 3 hours. I think in the next 10-15 minutes, we should have it pointed here, and then we can add it as an add-on domain. So just as I explained earlier, to add the add-on domain, you have to point it to these name servers, and that's what we are doing. So I would pause the video here and then continue later when it's completely pointed to name servers.